Well, hello and Happy New Year. If you're watching this on the day that it was released, today is New Year's Eve 2023. And I'm Dante Ferrigno, and this is Ferrigno Freedom Channel. I have been doing the Lion Diet now for nearly 3 years. In 2 weeks exactly, it will be 3 years. And I have just had an amazing time talking about all the changes that I've enjoyed in my life since going on a full carnivore way of eating. And one of the big changes has been something that I always thought about needing to be able to do, and something I always wanted to do, but just never took the time. And that's getting the exercise that I need. Once I started eating a carnivore way of eating, I just started finding I had energy. And that energy kind of showed me that I did have the time to exercise. I just didn't have the desire to exercise like I needed to before. And even today, even as a carnivore, I still sometimes find that I don't have that desire to get out there and punish myself like I need to get the exercise that my body needs to stay strong, to be able to have the muscle that I want to be able to have for the times when I need it. And I got to say, 2023 in review for me has been a overall drop-off on exercise. Was I still getting exercise? Yes, but it wasn't nearly as impactful as the exercises that I was doing in 2022, where I was getting out and walking every day practically, or rucking at some point. I was rucking the entire last half of the year. I was doing my weightlifting and all those other things that I had been doing, like push-ups and pull-ups and crunches and tricep presses and anything I can do that's body weight related exercise. I like body weight related exercise because that's what you've got to move around. So if you can move it around well, that's going to be the most, I think, efficient, probably the most natural way for us to be in good shape. I used to want to be the bodybuilder style back when I was a kid. I would see Lou Ferrigno and those guys, and I said, man, yeah, I would love to have a body like that. But in reality, that's not really what I'm going for. I don't want to be the Hulk like I did when I was a kid. I just want to be healthy. Having run a retirement home and seeing what it's like for people who are getting older and their bodies are suffering from lack of exercise, from lack of good nutrition, that really opened my eyes as to how common this frailty is in humans as we get older, because we're not taking advantage of the things we should take advantage of. And a good, healthy way of eating has obviously been the key for me. If you go back and watch any of my videos where I talk about where I came from where I am to where I am now, I'm a whole new person. I am the person that I wanted to be when I was a teenager, that when I wanted to be fit, when I wished I could not have all the belly fat and the body fat that I had, and that I could be athletic and that I could feel comfortable in my body. And I have that now. At 51 years old, I have that now, and I want to maintain it. And one of the things that has been difficult with exercise has been finding the time to do the exercise, especially when I'm running this channel and working a full-time job. Granted, the holidays have been great for having a break lately, because I left my last job at the end of November thinking I was going to start the new one closer to the end of November. Well, now the new one's not going to start until January, so I've enjoyed a very restful and relaxing holiday season, but I'm ready to get back to work. I'm ready to get back to the things that I know that my body needs to be able to have the body that I want. And that is the exercise that's necessary. Now, some people will say that walking doesn't do anything. I attest that walking did a lot, because it got me to break out of my not wanting to exercise routine. It's what got me started on this path, was just walking a little bit every day. That and actually started, I remember at the very beginning, I was just doing 10 push-ups. First thing in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, and 10 in the evening. That would get me started on a routine of something that was going to get me built back up. Well, with the walking, I got to where I was walking up to 7 miles in a day. The only problem is 3 hours is a big chunk out of a basically 16-hour day if you're sleeping for roughly 8 hours or resting for an hour and sleeping for another 7 hours, which is pretty typical for me. And I think to myself, I need to find a way to get everything I need to be able to manage my family, manage my job, manage what I'm doing here, and also make sure that I'm getting the exercise that I need. And one of the things that has been on my radar for a few months now is sprinting. I've heard Dr. Sean O'Mara talk about sprinting before. I've heard a couple of doctors that have been on YouTube talking about the benefits of sprinting. And the area that I would like to focus on is the fact that sprinting helps with visceral fat. And when you have love handles, that's usually a good sign that you still have some. So even after 3 years on a carnivore way of eating, I still have some of that visceral fat apparently. I definitely have the love handles. And I'd like to be able to get them down to where they're a little bit more the way I would like them to be. I mean, I don't necessarily have to have rock hard abs. That would be nice. But, I've never had that in my life. So I'm not focused on that. I just want to be fit. That's the key. And I want to have the time to be fit. So sprinting has been on my radar, as I said. And as a matter of fact, 2 days ago, I did my first experiment with sprinting. And I've been recording on that as I'm going because I want to talk about this more after I've experimented with it. But one of the things I don't often do a lot of is making sure I know all the ins and outs of what's going on, because sometimes people will just say things that it's just real easy. I was talking to a friend of mine from high school that I haven't talked to in 30 years, at least 30 years, that found me on YouTube talking about this way of eating. And he had some miraculous changes in just a few weeks. He had some vision problems that he was getting shots in his eyeball for to help with the vision problem. And 3 weeks of being on carnivore, he went back to see the doctor and they said, well, you don't need this shot anymore. Your vision is like, I don't remember the exact number, but he went from basically being legally blind in one eye to having normal vision again in a 3-week period. Something else he started to engage in is sprinting. Now, he talks about it like he doesn't do very much of it, but it's enough because he says if he can get a good 10-second sprint in every day, he's happy. So I think to myself, wow, 10 seconds, that's great for exercise if you want to get it done fast. But even when I've been doing my sprinting, I just don't feel like 10 seconds is enough. As a matter of fact, even when I've been going sprinting, I'm running a good half mile at full speed, not all at once because I get out of breath faster than that. But that full speed run, man, does it hit the impact on the body quickly. And then on top of that, even when I'm done, even when I'm worn out and exhausted, I look at it and think, this just wasn't long enough. Can this possibly be as good for you as they say it is? Can it actually make a difference in such a small amount of time? So we're going to see that experiment throughout January. But I wanted to take a look at this video that same friend of mine shared with me because it got him started on sprinting. And because I've got these questions, I want to know, should I be doing this? A 10-second run 3, 4, 5, or 6 times? Should I be trying to run longer? Should I be running as long as I possibly can before I have to stop and start breathing again? What's the best way to approach this? So I thought, let's learn together. So this video is called Why You Need to Sprint. And the title says, around 4 million years now, most never do it. Nothing gets you. Is that the whole title? Nothing gets you winded in 10 seconds or improves you more. Okay. Well, this is a video that my friend from high school shared with me, and he talks about that. So let's take a look at it.
Hey everybody, Dr. Sean here, doing a video on my favorite exercise, why I think it is the single best exercise for humans to do. If you could only do one exercise, this is the exercise that you should do and that I know I certainly would do if I could do nothing else. So let's get right into it. In this video, I'm going to be talking about sprinting. And I'm going to get into why I think it's the best exercise, get into a little bit of the science, and then I'm going to cover tips on how to sprint because some of you are going to need some guidance. I know a lot of my clients and followers on social media have asked for that guidance, and while I kind of think that sprinting is a really natural thing, there are some really important points that I have learned over my 12 years of sprinting that I want to get into and share it with you. So, first of all, this one exercise, nothing else comes close to it. Nothing else has the return on the time and the effort that you put into it in terms of results and improving your body than sprinting. So let me just ask right at the
I'll start off by saying that's exactly what I'm looking for. And when I heard about that part of sprinting, that's what appealed to me. I was looking at HIIT, H-I-I-T, and I kind of incorporate a HIIT type of workout when I'm doing my curls and my push-ups, and then when I alternate to do shoulder presses and squats, I do those in a HIIT format. I'm back and forth with very little time in between, because it does get the blood racing, it gets the heart pumping, and it really adds to that overall workout. I go until max so that I'm making sure that I'm extremely pushing my muscles to their maximum without breaking. And I kind of stop just before I feel like I get to, if I get to that point where I'm struggling to get the last one up, that's definitely the last one, but I usually stop about one before that. Hard to always know when that point is, but these are the kind of things I exactly want to know when it comes to sprinting.
The outset, if you're listening to this video and watching it, name one other exercise that you could do that gets you more short of breath in 10 seconds than sprinting. Think about that. Any other activity you could engage in that gets you more short of breath in 10 seconds than sprinting. That's it. I've thought about everything else. I don't know everything else. If you know something else, I'd like to hear from you. So what happens when you sprint is you use virtually every single muscle in your body when you're sprinting. That's why sprinters have an amazing body development. They have amazing musculature, the amazing frame. They just have this natural development to their muscles. One of my followers, or one of my clients, I should say, actually, he never lifted and he just was jacked just from sprinting. It has that much of a benefit in terms of improving your body. So let me ask you, share with you another insight and ask you another question. And that question is, have you ever seen a skinny marathoner? Somebody who does distance running. Of course you've seen distance runners and marathoners, and they're skinny very often, particularly the longer they do distance running, the more thin they are. Now let me ask you another follow-on question. Have you ever once seen a dedicated sprinter who is pudgy, overweight, or obese? Of course you have.
Doubt it.
Because if you are a dedicated sprinter, you are going to optimize your muscle and your fat. There's a lot of people out there that are dedicated distance runners, have been running for years, and they're still overweight. So what is the difference about sprinting and distance running that allows you to maximize your muscle to fat ratios? Well, turns out it's because of one molecule.
One thing I can say so far is just in 2 days of doing sprinting, last night I went to bed thinking I'm going to get up and do that first thing in the morning, but my shin splints were killing me. The muscles between your bones on your lower legs, oh my gosh, and they still are. I sat in a hot tub for a little while and tried to relax them, put some Epsom salt in there, and they're starting to feel a little better. So I plan to still do my third day of sprinting shortly here. And by the way, the reason Sam's not here, I got Bria today, but my wife and kids went down to go ride bikes at the Blue Run today. And since I hadn't made anything for you guys for the New Year's, I decided to stay here and spend some time with you and focus on this, because this is what I have found is what makes a difference. And it also is how I provide for my family. Between this channel and my job, it's so important for me to do the things that I need to do to take care of my family, but it's such a blessing to be able to spend this time looking at these things with you, my friends in the carnivore community who are looking for ways to be healthy for the first time in your life because you've been lied to by so many of the people in the healthcare and nutrition world that you're just desperately seeking for answers. Well, I'm still searching for other answers too, because now that I figured out how to get the weight off and get the poison out, I want to also take care of what I have left, what I've got to work with. And this sprinting idea, man, I'll tell you, the next morning after sprinting the first time, I thought, how can just a short period of time like that leave me so worn out? And then the second day, this morning when I woke up after the second day, it was like, oh gosh, I am beat just from doing 2 sets of sprinting. Now I'm still doing some of my other exercises in between, like I said, with the push-ups and the curls and the squats and the shoulder presses. But even those feel like they don't do nearly as much the next day as what half as much time spent sprinting has done.
Called a myokine, M-Y-O-K-I-N-E-S, myokines or myokine, M-Y-O-K-I-N-E. So I'd like you to Google it, read about it, and what it is, it's a messaging molecule, super cool, that goes around your body and it signals to tissue in your body. The myokines are released chiefly from big, large muscles in your legs, in your lower extremity. And they signal to the rest of your body to build muscle and burn fat. So that's why if you lift weights, you never want to cut or eliminate your leg days, because they create these myokines and they actually will build your muscles in your arm even if you're not using your arms. It goes out and transfers these signals to the rest of your body to build tissue and cut fat. So it's a great thing, and of course when you sprint, you're using a lot of your lower extremities muscles that release these myokines. So it's really important. Let me take you back to high school. When I was in high school, I was not much of an athlete, but I did do cross country for a couple seasons, and I did winter track. And during that time, I ran cross country, and winter track I ran distance running too. And there were a couple groups of guys on the groups of people on the team. One were the distance runners and one were the sprinters. And what's interesting to me is I remember very vividly that those of us who were distance runners, we walked around, we were kind of lanky, and we looked like, if you remember the character from Wizard of Oz movie, the Scarecrow, kind of uncoordinated and floppy and everything. That's kind of how the distance runner was, or similar to the character maybe Napoleon Dynamite, if you know who that is, or Sheldon off the Big Bang Theory. So kind of thin and emaciated and not too coordinated. But the sprinters, they had this smooth saunter. They were very smooth. And if you notice people that are also really fast running backs, they have a saunter. They're coordinated and they just have the smoothness about them and nice physiques. So very different builds, very different sports, very different forms of exercise between distance running and sprinting. So when it comes to these myokines, you really want more of those to optimize your frame. So if you are somebody out there doing distance running, you're not getting those myokines released as much as when you do sprinting. So you should transition. I encourage all my clients to stop doing distance running and actually transition to sprinting, because you can go across the country and go into gyms and see all kinds of people running on treadmills, jogging, trying to lose weight, and they're just not maximizing their ability to lose that fat and to gain muscle. Let me share with you a really cool insight on some MRIs, okay? These are MRIs, and the white stuff in the middle is visceral fat. That's the belly button, that little black thing on the top, and back, the black things are muscles in the back. So this is a guy who was filled with visceral fat. He came back for a scan. And in 2 months, he was doing 10 miles a day, 5 times a week, so running 50 miles. And in less than 2 months, he completely eliminated his visceral fat and got a six-pack. Look at that. Got jacked, built muscles. So what did he do? He didn't change his diet. He only did one thing in between these two frames. He simply stopped doing distance running and he became a sprinter. He adopted sprinting. So this is a perfect example of how these myokines when they're released, go through your body in short order and tell you to shred, to get shredded. It tells you to build muscle and get rid of visceral fat. So radiographically, it became my most favorite exercise when, as a researcher studying the optimization, health, and the elimination of chronic disease. So I have all my clients now sprinting. So it's really important insight I wanted to be able to share with you, that we've seen that time and time again, that's what happens inside the body and happens outside the body too. You'll see a shredded look when people start sprinting. So it's a really important thing to do. So the other insight I want to share with you, another Dr. Sean insight, is faces. So if you follow me for a long time, you know I'm big on faces, and then I like to post on facial changes. As you get rid of visceral fat, your face becomes more lean and less inflamed. The opposite is also true. When you put on visceral fat, when you eat a lot of processed foods, your face becomes inflamed. And we wear our health on our face. Our faces and our bodies tell the story of how healthy we are consistently between the face and the rest of the body. So what's interesting,
I can attest to that much, at least. If you look at a picture of my face side by side when I began and my face now, it's hard to believe that it's the same person, even if you're only looking at the face. But then if you back up and look at the body and the fact that I cut off all my hair and everything else, it's even easier to think you're looking at two different people. But my tattoos are all still in the same places in those pictures, so it does give you an idea. But that has been a wonderful benefit, is that I've had a trimming in the face. But even on Carnivore, I've gotten in periods where I've started to put on a little bit of weight, and I don't always know exactly the reason why, except that I wasn't exercising as much as I was previously. When I got down to my lowest weight at 176, I was probably doing more exercise than I ever had in my entire life, because I was working the graveyard shift at UPS during the Christmas holidays, and I was begging for hours. It's like, give me hours anywhere you can put me, and they were working me to death. But I lost that after I left UPS, because I was working in a job where I'm just walking. It's great exercise, but it wasn't nearly as intensive as what I was used to. And that intensity, I thought, was the key. Well, that's the thing about sprinting that I like, is that it's real intense, but it's only for a short period of time. And there's something in my brain that keeps saying it's just not long enough. And I'm hoping this is going to help clear up those answers. Also, the concern I'm sure a lot of us have is, what about my joints? I used to think that I can't do running because my knees were just too jacked up in the past. And I thought, there's no way I could do running. I can barely walk. So knowing now that I can get my knee strength back from some good diet and exercise, I realize that I can probably overcome this too. But it's still something that I'd like to hear him address, because I know there's a lot of people watching this that are my age or older, or maybe even younger, who look at that and say, I could never do that. I couldn't take that pounding on my body. Well, maybe first things first. Let's get the weight off by getting the right nutrition in you, and then change that overall desire to have activity, because you'll have more energy when you get that excess weight off, when you get all that poison out of your diet. And then maybe you can look at doing something like this. But even my buddy that I told you about that I went to high school with, he says he's barely making it on those 10 seconds, and he's given that a shot. So it doesn't take a whole lot, apparently, for a lot of people. And even he mentions he talks about it in the title right here. You can see, winded in 10 seconds. And I'd like to hear him go into detail on how you actually do the sprinting and how long you should do it.
Interesting to me is I pay attention to these faces a lot. And I notice in runners, when they're out there jogging and they've been running for quite a while, they've got a really inflamed looking face. I mean, more inflamed looking than normal. They typically, when I'm driving my car and I go by and I take a look at their faces, they're like this. I mean, they look awful. I mean, the looks on their faces. I challenge you, look at somebody who's been out running for a long time, and then look at their face and honestly ask yourself this one question. Does that look like they're having fun? Does it, I know you don't go out to run to have fun, but does it look like that's a good activity that you want to do? No, it's an extraordinarily troubling look to me. Now, when I see a sprinter, Very different look on their face. Now, of course, they're not out there doing it for a super long time, a short sprint, but they've got this intense face on them. They've got this game face on. And it has this interesting effect. While the runner, flame look on that face, like they're all, haggard and stuff, that kind of repulses me, makes me less interested in running. The sprinter's face makes me want to find some place to go and sprint. The other interesting thing is just the form of a sprinter. In full sprint is a very attractive form, and when you see it done well, it makes you want to go out and sprint. So sprinting has a lot of attractiveness about it on a biological basis, and I think the reason is because it really optimizes. In fact, no other sport or no other exercise or activity I can think of throughout humanity has had a more important and significant role in keeping humans in the gene pool and optimizing their health and optimizing their quality of life than sprinting, because it protected you to be able to get away from threats, and it also allowed you to catch animals when you would hunt so that you could be a better provider and be able to hunt and gather better. So sprinting is significant. It's very, very important activity throughout a human existence, and we've gotten away from it. Everybody's got this, there's this love affair now with everybody out doing distance running. And I want to ask you a question. I gave you the example of how runners are always thin. Well, that's the end state of a distance runner, is they become atrophied, very thin. I don't get what the love affair is with shrinking your musculature. Now, I am never going to be a bodybuilder. It's not because I couldn't. Well, I mean, I suppose I could work on becoming a body, but the hypertrophied body, of a bodybuilder is not the look, not the state that I shoot for. Neither is an anorexic, really thin body, and nor is an obese body. I want to get a svelte, very fit, very healthy-looking body that functions well, performs well, like a hunter-gatherer has that kind of a look. And if you look at hunter-gatherer tribes, they're not big-bodied, muscular types, and they're not thin, emaciated, skinny types either. So it's right in the middle. The track build, Usain Bolt, the look of an accomplished sprinter is what I want to get. So these distance runners end up losing their muscle, and this brings up a huge problem in our country. A scourge that's afflicting humanity right now, a form of chronic disease, and that I like to talk about this to bring awareness to it, and it's called sarcopenia, so muscle atrophy. So your muscles literally atrophy and shrink and go away as you age, and actually it's not so much you become older, it's because you're accumulating more chronic disease. The processes that cause chronic disease cause sarcopenia, which is a chronic disease, and I think the origin, and it's certainly contributing to it, worsening all forms of chronic disease that I ever studied, is visceral fat. So visceral fat plays a huge role in sarcopenia. You want to eliminate that visceral fat, but you don't want to contribute to it also by doing a lot of distance running. So think about high distance runners, marathoners, very thin and atrophied looking. And so too are bicyclists. People, any kind of long distance kind of sport, high duration sport they get. So these cyclists are really skinny and thin too. Listen, when you are 90 years old or maybe 70 years old and you are emaciated and thin and frail, we're on your way. It's your muscles and your functionality that's going to allow you to get your butt out of a chair so you can do those things to lift and enjoy a quality of life. So do not contribute to sarcopenia by doing a lot of durational exercise.
I don't know if it's sarcopenia that I was diagnosed with, but I was told one time by a doctor that the muscle up here got torn around my rotator, and that the muscles attaching above it had calcified, and that there was no way that would heal. It still hurts to this day. If I put my arm up around my wife or something at night in bed, after about 10 minutes, it feels like there's a knife sticking me right here in the shoulder where you can't see around the microphone. But that was something that I just grew to accept. And I was probably still in my 30s at the time. And knowing now that I could have prevented that and reversed it possibly if I'd have started doing this way of eating a lot sooner, would have been nice, because it's a pain that I don't like to live with. And it makes my left arm weaker when I have to do anything that involves lifting it up like this. So to know that that could happen as early as my 30s, and here I am in my 50s, I don't want to see that happening in other areas of my body. It's already bad enough losing 25% of your overall major limbs being functionally like they should. So if you want to be able to maintain that body that you have, as long as you're going to live in it, you got to take care of your muscles. So what he's saying here definitely appeals to me. The whole idea of how they look on their face when they're running, at first I was thinking, what the heck does that have to do with anything? But I will say there is a mindset that's involved. And when I'm out there on those sprints that I've been doing, it's so focused. You're just like, first of all, I feel like I'm moving in slow motion when I'm doing it, because it doesn't feel like I'm going as fast as I would like to be able to go. But then again, I haven't been using my legs as much as I should. I've been focused almost exclusively in my life, focused on my upper body strength when it came to that, because I always thought my legs were huge to begin with. But back when I was heavy, now my legs are like twigs. I can't believe how small they are. I never thought I would be wearing pants this size. These are small jogging shorts. I mean, it just blows my mind that I can have that. But it is real easy to neglect those legs. And if this is going to help not only with the legs, but if working the legs hard like that can have a big effect on the rest of the body, what he talked about, that svelte look, which is a weird word. It makes me think of something else for some reason. But just having that body that's not emaciatedly thin and not ridiculously muscular, but that is in good shape, that has good defined curves or what people would call cut, that's what I would be more than happy with. I'd be honest with you, I'm happy already. I'm happy that I have the body that I have now thanks to Lion Diet and the Carnivore diet. But it's just opened up doors to pathways I never thought that I could even consider going down. So now that I'm here, I want to take advantage while I can, while I am in my 50s, so that when I get to my 60s and when I get to my 70s, if the Lord hasn't already come back yet, I'll still be functioning like I should. I can maybe live at home and not have somebody trying to shuffle me off to a retirement home or looking for one myself, depending on how you look at that. I want to be able to live out my life in control of my body as much as I possibly can, because I only get one shot at it. It's not like a video game. There's no game over. There's no starting over when your man dies. You don't get another one to go. Take care of the one you got now. So that's why I keep pushing forward. Not to mention, I want to be able to encourage you guys that a guy that was like me, that was eating the same food that a lot of people are still eating today, and was wondering why he was always fat and unhappy and uncomfortable and unhealthy, was able to get back. Not only get back the best health I've ever had, I really think the past 3 years have been the healthiest 3 years of my life. Even my senior year of high school doesn't compete with it when I went on the wrestling team. I was not much of a sportsman in high school either. That was my only sport, and I only did it 1 year. I did play football 1 year, but I didn't like our coach, so I didn't play anymore after that. But anyway, I don't want to get into all the crazy things I was thinking when I was a kid, because who knows where I was going. I was lost as they could be. But finding this way of eating and finding out all the lies that we've been told about food and pharma, it's just been so eye-opening, and it's such a freedom to break free from all of the lies and all of the noise, and to finally have answers to why my body was the way it was, why I felt the way I felt, and not only have answers to why, but having solutions to fix those problems. So let's press on with this.
I challenged my clients, showed you the MRI. Other people are starting to catch on. For the first time, I've seen another personality on social media, Carnivore MD 2.0, Dr. Paul Saladino. He's now advocating against distance running and doing sprinting. So I think that's awesome. I challenge other doctors, other health coaches out there, other personal trainers. Get on board understanding sprinting and see if it doesn't improve your clients better. I don't get this this distance running and contribute to it, because you're building. There's only two types of muscles: fast twitch and slow twitch. So when you do distance running, you're destroying your fast twitch. I mean, you're actually not building fast twitch. You're building the slow twitch, and it diminishes it. So you get to choose one or the other. So I choose to build my fast twitch muscles, because when you look at quality of life, in the end, I don't really care that I can run forever. What I care is I have a more functional lifestyle, and I can breathe, and I can get my butt out of a chair, and I can climb a tree or get myself through a window, whatever I have to do, rather than be able to run forever. So quality of life really pertains more to sprinting. I think you get a better return. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my first time sprinting. Okay, so many of you have never sprinted in a very, very long time. So the first time I thought about challenging myself as an adult to sprint, it was at the age of 48, and it was actually about 46. So when I was first thinking about sprinting, I remember thinking, my God, it has been decades, like 20 years, 30 years since I've sprinted, a long, long time. And I thought, what is it going to be like? I mean, it was very, very intimidating. It caused a lot of apprehension. And so when I went out to try it, I lived out in a very rural area. I had, it was out in the country, and we had like 10-acre lots and these homes. But I had neighbors. So I remember I looked around. I did a 360 literally around my backyard to make sure that none of my neighbors were outside and could see me sprint, because I was so concerned that I was going to do something wrong, like trip and do a face plant, and I'd never hear the end of it. So that was my own experience. But what happened was that I started slow and I accelerated to maximum speed. So I was sprinting, and I held it for a few seconds, and I think, oh my God, I am sprinting. I did it. I can sprint. I was an older guy and I could sprint. So you can too. You have the ability. Everybody probably listening to this video sprinted at some point in their childhood when they were younger. Got foot races and stuff. So you have the innate ability to sprint. You may not be able to sprint well, but you have sprinted in the past, and it's sort of like riding a bike. If you did it one time, you can do it again. You may not be great at it, but I'm going to give you some tips on how to get started on it. And the key to this is starting slow and build into it. So one point I want to share with you, if you think you're really bad at sprinting, like you're really slow and you're just out of shape, let me encourage you. You're going to have the best results. You listening right now, if that is you, you're going to improve the most versus somebody who's maybe a collegiate athlete and they just want to get back into sprinting. Maybe they just do volleyball or something. But the older person that is really in bad shape and really slow and hasn't sprinted in 30, 40, 50 years, you're going to improve the most, and it's going to be the most important for you to slowly implement a sprinting program, because you're going to have a much better return. So this sprinting, this activity, this form of exercise is way more important than you can even imagine. So just get started and you see these benefits over a period of time. All right, let's talk some tips, okay? I said I was going to tell you how to do it. So key to this is to start slow and slowly advance your sprinting, okay? And even before you start anything, you got to warm up, okay? We're not like animals that are free of chronic disease. And why are animals free of chronic? Because they eat what they should eat. They don't eat what they shouldn't eat. And they exercise in a very intense manner. They don't go out to a gym and hang out there for an hour and a half, or long distance running, or circuit training for 45 minutes. It's a high intensity event, and then it's done very, very briefly. So, and they do a lot of sprinting because they got to get away from predators, or if they're a predator, they got to catch a prey. So there's a lot of high intensity sprinting. So first warm up. So what I like to do is just walk. I walk somewhere where I'm going to be sprinting. I live here in Minnesota, so I sprint in an indoor track for a good portion of the year, because there's ice and snow everywhere, and I do not want to slip and hurt myself. Key to this exercise when you're particularly older is no injuries. You don't want to get injured anytime, even if you're a young athlete. If you're young, it's less devastating. But if you are old and you get an injury, it's going to be a very long time to much longer than for an average person because chronic disease, visceral fat. Get rid of that visceral fat, you'll heal much faster. So I talk a lot about visceral fat.
That's what I want. Even more than the svelte body and all that stuff, I just want to be able to heal fast and be healthy. That is prerequisite. And he talks about warming up. And I usually think of stretching at the beginning. I didn't even think of warming up. I am the world's worst when it comes to stretching and warming up for any type of exercise, because I always feel like whatever I'm doing isn't doing anything. It isn't really stretching as much as I would like. I can't flex as much as I would like. I can't bend, I can't get like my hands all the way down to my toes in a certain position or something like that. And I feel like I'm just wasting my time. But I'll tell you, after 2 days of sprinting with very little stretching or didn't do any warming up ahead of time, I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't hurt as much as I do now had I done that a little better. And thinking about walking beforehand didn't even come to mind. So that's why it's a good idea to watch these videos, especially if you're like me and exercise is a new thing for you. It's something you've always known about. You've always watched other people do it, or you've seen it on movies and TV and all that other stuff, but it hasn't been a part of your life. It's hard to make something a routine that you just don't have any familiarity with. And even though I know I'm supposed to warm up and stretch before exercising, it's something that I often forget to do. And it's good to have somebody who's obviously got some good experience with taking care of his body reminding me how important that is.
Find out about it and get rid of it so that you can optimize your health. So warm up, start slow, do some walking, maybe do a little bit of light jogging just to get your joints going. And once you're warmed up a little bit for a few minutes, some people will take a little bit longer to do that, and then you're ready to get started. Now, I also recommend some stretching, okay? So lots of different stretches. I'm going to go into all stretches other than one that I really like to do, and it's a full deep squat, okay? So I'm going to back up. Most people, when they squat, I'll back up here. When they squat with their, hopefully you can see my heels. Heels are up in the air. You know, this is kind of how they squat. I can't even do that one anymore. It's interesting how hard that is for me. But the way I squat, what I recommend is keep your heels flat on the ground, okay? So I go down and I keep my heels flat on the ground, and then I like to bring my legs up. Now you're not going to be able to do this if you haven't done it. You have to work on that, okay? So you'll probably only be able to go down a little bit, but gradually work on this hold until you get lower, and you're going to bring your butt down, okay? Bring your butt to your Achilles, and it decompresses your back. It stretches out your back, and it's great for your hips. It's great for your knees, great for all your joints. So it really is a fantastic exercise. And I bring my legs up, and sometimes I rock just a little bit, and that's all I have to do. I don't have to do anything else other than get myself into a squatting position.
I got to admit, I didn't think I could get into that position that I was just in, where I was down there and have my feet flat on the ground. I do a good bit of air squats, but I don't do them religiously, or I don't use any weight or anything like that. I haven't focused on getting into a full squat position like that, and I don't remember when the last time I was, so I didn't think I was going to be able to do what I just did there. It just goes to show you can get that ability back. You think it's gone because you're older. You think it's gone because you're overweight. Well, I was older and I was overweight and I was unhealthy and I was eating all the wrong foods. Changed everything. Getting that exercise, getting those muscles going, it really does make a difference. I mean, it's thrilling to me. It's thrilling to me to be able to get into a squat position like that, knowing that there was a time when just bending over was too hard for me. So to be able to get in that position now at age 51, love it.
A little bit, and I'm ready to sprint. Other people will have to do a little more stretching, do a little more exercise. So again, start slow and advance slowly. You cannot take off like an animal, like a deer. A deer can take off, it's down grazing, and suddenly a wolf shows up and it's bolting from 0 to 30, 40 miles per hour and nothing flat, because it doesn't have chronic disease and it won't tear into something. If we do that at our age with chronic disease, and guess what, visceral fat, you're going to have a tendon tear, ligament strain, muscle strain. You're just going to damage something. So you've got to start slowly and work your way up. So I recommend starting in a standing position and just slowly accelerate. Might take you 10 seconds to slowly accelerate to maybe 30 seconds to, over a slow period of time, to the fastest you can possibly run. And once you've achieved that and you are maximum effort on that sprint, you hold that anywhere from 2 more seconds to maybe as long as 20 seconds. So you hold that maximum effort and then you slowly taper off, okay? Don't hit the brakes, just slow down and walk.
It's been hard to count when I've been doing my sprints because I'm just focused on going as fast as I can, and I have been getting off the go like that, running as fast as I can from the beginning. It just strikes me immediately how much it feels like I don't have, like my legs just won't go fast enough. If I was trying to get away from something, I feel like I'm not running as fast as I should. But knowing that I've been able to do, which basically is about 30 seconds of going as fast as I can, usually on the very first sprint that I try, that's encouraging, because I've, like I say, it's one of those things that happens so quickly, and I've been healthy now for a few years that it feels like it's not that big a deal. It is a big deal. I can feel it today, what I did over the past 2 days, more than any of the exercises I've been doing over the last 8 or 9 weeks, where I was really focusing on my fasting and my exercise together, just for the last experiment that I did. And if you haven't seen the last experiment that I did, you can go back to, I think it's around the end of October, beginning of November. I think it was the end of October, where I started doing the fasting experiments. And once a week I was posting on those. And it was good, but I never had what I feel just in 2 days of sprinting. And I literally have only sprint from like my driveway to the end of the street. I sprint back, and then I sprint down to the driveway to the end of the street again. And it's the second time is obviously I have to stop much quicker because I get out of breath faster. But then I walk around for a minute and finish the sprint some more, walk around for a little bit, finish the sprint some more, walk around for a little bit, and then sprint all the way back. Altogether, it's about a half mile that I've been doing in those 2 days. So I can definitely, based on what he said, put to bed any worries that I'm not doing enough, because it does feel that way sometimes. But I also like the idea of making sure I start off slow, because my fast twitch muscles just aren't there. That's what I feel like I'm missing. All my muscles are doing slow twitch work. So they're used to that. They're used to walking for exercise. I want that fast twitch ability. I want to have the ability that if I have to throw a punch, that I can throw it fast. I always feel like everything is so slow. Anytime I've ever been in any type of fighting situation, or where I've had to defend myself when I was younger, there's no doubt I felt like I was swinging in some, like almost like I'm dreaming, and I can't really land that punch. So the whole slow twitch, fast twitch muscle difference, I don't think any of my fast twitch muscles have ever been focused on in my life. So that's encouraging that I'm going to be working on those.
And that you just did your first sprint. So a minimum is hold it for 2 seconds, and you can do 30 seconds, but at some point it stops being a sprint. It's a fast run, because basically your sweet spot, I tell people, is 10 seconds. So glycogen expenditure, max effort, sprinting 10 seconds. Usain Bolt has blown through his glycogen at that point, and thereafter it's anaerobic metabolism. So you get to blow through your glycogen, and depending on how long you take to get to that, 10, 5 to 20 seconds, depending on what you got, and then you can slow down. So I basically recommend try to, on average, about a 10-second sprint, maybe as short as 2 seconds, maybe as long as 20 seconds. And I also recommend variety, okay? So nature is not big on numbers. Nature doesn't really care about 10 seconds. So what nature would do is different circumstances would introduce variability in our lifestyle. So sometimes we'd go a week without having to sprint. Other times we'd have to sprint a few times a day. And maybe it's a short sprint, maybe it's a long sprint. But you want variability, okay? So your muscles get and your body get challenged with variable circumstances. So make sure you don't have any kind of monotonous plan. People want, they're very interested in how many sprints and how long and numbers and stuff like that. Mix it up. And so I gave you a few numbers, 2 to about 20 seconds, maybe 30 once in a while. Maybe once in a blue moon, I'll do a 60-second, but not very often. So keep it generally short. And as far as frequency goes, I try, roughly have my clients do 6 to 10 sprints or so every other day. So 6 to 10 sprints every other day. Now, how long in between those sprints? Sometimes I go back to back. Other times I will wait as long as an hour. So one of my favorite days, I do some teleworking. Some of my favorite days are I sprint and then I wait an hour, go back in my office, stand up desk, do some work, go back, do another sprint, wait an hour, do some more work. So mixing it up that way. So that's a great thing to do. Otherwise, sometimes I'll wait, anywhere 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, mix it up and change it around. All right, a few other tips I want to share with you is I mentioned don't run on ice, don't risk an injury. You can try to find a gym. The YMCA have a lot of YMCAs, and other gyms will have these indoor tracks, and you should go use an indoor track so you have access to that. But another key trick, I have to do some travel, and lots of people have travel. So when I travel to a hotel, I like to go to the convention areas where I have those conferences, those big banquet hallways, big banquet rooms. I'll sprint either in one of those big banquet rooms or in the long hallways, where they have these big hallways. People go out and mingle with cocktails and stuff out there. Well, you go out there when there's nobody around, you can sprint up there. And I used to go and ask permission. It was kind of awkward and it was kind of weird. I don't ask permission anymore. I just go to these hotels. I like Marriott. I go to these hotels and I sprint in those areas I just find out where they are and I go sprinting. It doesn't take long, right? So by the time the security guy sees me in the camera and says, go check on a guy up there, gray hair, he's up there sprinting. I'm gone. I'm done with my sprinting. So I've never had anybody say anything to me. And then after doing a few times, I go back and maybe do it longer. And pretty soon they just know who I am, and I'm just a sprinter, and I don't do anything, and I go on my way. So you can consider doing that. Some people sprint going up steps. I do not recommend ever sprinting up steps. It's an unnatural device, stairs. Nothing like it in humanity for the past probably 4 million years or so. So avoid those stairs. Do not sprint. I know people sprint up in stadium runs and stuff, athletic teams. If you're a young person, you could probably get away with it if you get an injury and recover. But if you're an older person, we're talking potentially a devastating injury. It's just not worth it. If you're a coach, you're a high school coach, you're a college coach, I don't think you should be out there having your players running that. Get them on a hill. Have them much safer, less chance for an injury. It'd be an interesting study to see how many people get injured doing those sprints up those stadiums. But for sure, if you're older, do not do it. Now, it's a cool thing and a great thing to sprint up a hill. The reason is you can't run as fast, so the biomechanics are not as challenging, so it's actually safer. So it is harder, in terms of, gravity's working it. Your ROI will be better, but it's not going to be as complicated. The corollary, the opposite of it, is that if you sprint downhill, way more challenging, much more complicated. The biomechanics are a lot more demanding and a higher incidence of injury sprinting down a hill. So don't do that. I don't even recommend a young person If you really had to get away from a threat, then yeah. But if you don't have to sprint downhill, don't do that. Sprint on level ground. Do not sprint on a treadmill. Lots of people think, can I sprint on a treadmill? And I see people doing it. And it's kind of cool to see the young kids, children, and young adults are able to sprint really fast. Well, if they get an injury on that treadmill, they'll be able to recover. But for those of us, the biomechanics as you get older become more challenged. And you risk getting a serious injury because that surface, that treadmill, is not stationary ground that you're running on. Mm-hmm. It's a moving surface. So it's a different sort of activity. And one little miscalculation, and you could suffer real significant injury. So I do not recommend running on treadmills. Now, shoes. What kind of shoes should you wear? I'm into nature, so I recommend minimalist shoes. No cushion, zero drop. What's a zero drop shoe is not where the toe part and the heel part are the same level. They're flat. So most runner shoes, unfortunately, have heels and they have cushion in them, and they're doing heel strikes. When you sprint, you're going to land on the balls of your feet and kiss the ground, just kind of skim off of that and not heel strike. So my favorite shoe, I like five-finger Vibrams and minimalist shoes. My favorite shoes of all times are the ones I got here. Look at this. These are moccasins. But there's no cushion in there. That's just a layer of leather, okay? So when I sprint, it feels cool to sprint barefooted, but even Native Americans, they have some kind of protection on their shoes, and moccasins are a great thing. You can feel the ground way better. If you have to try to read the ground and feel the ground through all that cushion, you're not going to be able to perceive and discern the ground and make these little micro adjustments when you're sprinting as well when you got all that thick cushion. So you can get these things off Amazon, Minnetonka moccasins. I think they're like $50. They come with inserts. I rip those things out. I just go nature because Native Americans didn't put any inserts in. You don't need any cushion, just a little bit of extra skin to protect your skin so you don't get cut on a rock or.
I've worn those five-finger Vibram shoes, and I have a couple of pairs. I have one for water sports. I have one for hiking. I guess I could use it for sprinting. I can give it a try. I've been using some new shoes that another company sent me, this company called Fitville, and they're definitely thicker soles. But the one thing I run on sand that has a lot of rocks in it. And I know if I was wearing my Vibrams out there, I'd be feeling every one of those rocks when I was going. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But it is interesting, the idea of walking on natural surface only for the most part, with the exception of like moccasin little piece of leather there, or like the little thin sole that you get on the Vibram shoes. Some say it's good, some say it's not good. It's hard to know which way is the truth on this. But I can tell you, after wearing Vibrams for a couple of years, my feet hurt a lot of the time. And they didn't hurt as much when I wore soles that had the pads in them. The question is feet hurting that big of a deal? Is it a good thing to have your feet hurting? Is it actually making your feet stronger? Is it better for the bone structure? Is it better for your overall long-term support? I don't know. I really don't. But I'll try to investigate that while I'm going down the sprinting path as well, since I have both kind of shoes to try with. We'll see.
Or a stick or something like that. All right, so I think those are the important things that I covered. I don't think I missed anything. I hope I've turned you on into sprinting, why it is the very best exercise you could do. It gives you your best return. And the last thing I should tell you about is BFR bands. I'm not going to go into it because I just did a video on them. But whenever you sprint, I recommend you wear BFR bands. One's on your arms and one's on your legs, because it will make it more challenging, more difficult to sprint, but it will give you a better return. So in studies, the sprinters in Division I NCAA teams who wore them, they built more muscle and were running faster in 6 weeks compared to another group that did the exact same workout but didn't wear these BFR, blood flow restriction bands. So it basically restricts your blood. And I want you to listen to my YouTube video on BFR bands, because I figured out something very interesting. that I'll just bait it and leave it at that. How BFR bands make your lungs and the heart, your heart, stronger and better. So that's going to benefit all your activities. So take a look at that YouTube video. And if you like this video, give it a like. I hope that you like it. You can consider subscribing to my channel if you like this content, and share it with other people so that they have the benefit of learning about sprinting. And if you want to follow me on Twitter.
I guess that's going to do it for the video. I hate that it was in the, what do they call that format? Portrait mode? Or, yeah, not landscape, but portrait mode. Because it didn't work well with my video environment here. But I think overall it's going to work out good, because I liked a lot of the things he covered. Those BMR bands kind of conflict with his notion of all of this, you know, what man didn't have millions of years ago and all that stuff. But if it has a benefit, it's definitely worth looking into. I mean, you know, if you've watched my channel before, you might know that I don't subscribe to the fact that humans have been around for millions of years. And I think a lot of the science we've got is just way off in the left field, with a lot of things about how long things have been here and what humans have done and what humans have been involved in. And I'm not a big fan of all the way the whole notion of evolutionary origin comes into our system. So, you know, I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. I believe that humans have been around for as long as Adam and the rest of his family have been around. But it doesn't change the fact that getting back to natural things that we did for even those thousands of years would be beneficial. So whether you want to talk about it in terms like more secularly accepted by people in academia and medicine and nutrition or whatever, and you want to say that it was millions of years, or if you look at it from my standpoint that it's only been a few thousand years that men have been on the earth, just knowing what little we know about our own history over the past hundreds of years, even the past 100 years is so obscure to us, it's hard for us to talk about what we knew before catastrophic events have happened that have changed the landscape of the earth and all kind of things that have gone on in the thousands of years that we have recorded history. But ultimately, for me, what it comes down to when it comes to this discussion about being the natural way of doing things is that I do like the idea of sticking with things that our bodies were made to deal with, that our bodies were designed to. We were made to eat meat. We were made to eat plants. We were made to eat food that was available to us. But plants were just I really look at the way plants are for human eating in the past was just, that was what you ate when you couldn't catch something. And then at the same time today, the plants that we have to eat have been all changed so much that they don't even resemble what they were designed to be. And they are way higher in carbohydrates. They're way higher in toxicity. They're covered in pesticides. You've got so many other things going on in modern plants that eating meat for me has been the only option. But I think that's just part of how life has changed in the world over thousands of years of humans being here. I may look into the BMR bands he was talking about, but I'm happy with just what I've experienced in the first couple of days of trying sprinting. And now that I know that he says, 6 to 8, I think he said every 2 days is pretty good. And I've been doing 4 every day. So I'm hitting that right now. But I was worried that those 4 sprints weren't enough. And they were varying in distances, and not really distances, but the amount of time I spent sprinting doing them. But it was as long as he was asking for. So 10 seconds is good if you're going at full speed. 2 seconds, if you can maintain that, is even fine. And doing 6 to 8 sprints every couple of days, mix it up as you want. I like the idea that you can mix it up, because there's days when I get up in the morning, I'm just like, if I get out there and try to sprint now, it's going to be awful. But maybe if I can do it in just a little while, which I plan to do, it'll be good. And knowing that I'm mixing it up to keep my body kind of off guard for that kind of thing is beneficial. That makes it even better. Well, anyway, I like the video. I like the idea of what sprinting might be able to do for me and what it might be able to do for you. I would love to hear your comments if you've had any experience with sprinting, especially if you've been doing that on a carnivore way of eating, because it ties into what we're doing here with the overall health for everyone. And I hope you'll stay tuned throughout January and see how my sprinting experience goes. And I'll see you guys next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?